Guys, it's Matt. By the end of this video, I want to make sure you know about the two pieces of a winning trading system. And yes, there really only are two. So by the end of this, you should know, do you have a winning, profitable trading system or do you have a shit system? All right, let's get in. So first, what I want to do is talk a little bit about finding a trading system online and whether can you really get good guidance online as far as trying to figure out what a good profitable strategy or system is. Um, what you'll find in places like YouTube or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is a lot of people sharing like big winners and huge profits, and it just the general rule. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? But then every once in a while, you'll see somebody who gets credit for showing their losses, like I see this on Twitter all the time. Just be like, dude, you're so legit. You share your losses. It's like just because they share losses doesn't mean they're legit. Yes, it is a red flag if someone is only posting winners all the time. They're just not being honest because nobody wins all the time. Like this is not how it works. You lose sometimes, and that's part of the game. But anyway, just because somebody shows losses doesn't mean they're legit. But it might give you an idea of like, oh, maybe this person's okay, and really it's just a matter of like how you kind of gotta have a bullshit detector, right? Like how honest does this person seem and what are they trying to sell me? Because some of the best trading systems that are out there that you can get for free are free, right? They're actually free, not like, hey, join my room or join my chat room or join my paid service or whatever. Not that paid services are all bad. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of go over that. And really quick, what you really need to do is do your own work, right? Like, even if you find a system that you think is legit, test it. Like, you got to back test it. You got to make sure that it's legit. You got to paper trade it for a while and make sure that you can actually implement it in real time. So just remember, as always, work hard because you're on your own. Okay, so the first aspect we want to talk about is win rate. So win rate is not by itself going to tell you whether you have a winning system or not, but it is a necessary part of whether you have a winning system or not. We call that necessary but not sufficient. It means it has to be there, but on its own, it does not suffice, right? It doesn't tell you what you want to know all on its own. Um, so to get your win rate, it's really simple. You just take the amount of winning trades over a given time period that you're testing over that system, and you divide it by the total trades. A couple quick examples. So if you have 35 wins and you have 47 total trades, your win rate is 0.745. Or you can multiply that by 100 and call it 74.5%. So that's you're winning 74.5% of the time, which is a pretty sweet win rate. Um, Example B, if you have 35 wins, but there were 97 total trades, your win rate is 0.361. Or again, multiply that by 100, you've got 36.1%. So you're winning 36.1% of the time. Uh, so what I want you to do now, and I don't normally do this and ask you guys to comment on things because I figure you'll do it if you want and you won't if you don't. But I want to see if you'll guess which one of these systems you think or which one of these win rates would give you a more profitable trading system. Just your thoughts on it. Would it be A? Would it be B? And why? Um, okay. The second thing we need to talk about is profit loss ratio. Okay. So again, this is necessary to find out whether you've got a winning system or not, but it's not sufficient. So average winning trade divided by your average losing trade. So take all your winners, add them up, divide by however many there are. If I have to explain to you how to do an average, you probably should pick a different way to make money. Uh, but we'll do it anyway. So add up all your winners, divide by however many there are. Do the same for your losers. Add them all up, divide by how many losers you have, right? That will give you your average win and your average loss. And then you take your average win and divide it by your average loss. Cool? Okay. Profit loss ratio example. So your average win is $300, your average loss is $600. You have a zero point 0.5 profit loss ratio, right? So basically, your average winner is half your average loss. Um, Example B is using R multiples, and I did these this way on purpose because there are different ways you can measure your outcomes of trades. Uh, I like using R multiples the best, um, especially when communicating to other traders what a system is like, because gross, profits like a $300 win and a $600 loss don't really mean anything. um, I shouldn't say they don't mean anything, but they might not translate well to another trader. Like maybe I'm used to taking $600 losses or $6,000 losses or whatever, right? But maybe a new trader is like, man, if I lose $60, that's going to hurt, right? They've got like a small account and they're just trying to get their feet on the ground, and so they're not looking to lose that. And obviously they can do some of the math themselves, but if you just talk in R multiples, then that takes care of all that, right? You just know, all right, my risk or R is $10 because I have a small account, or this guy's risk is $1,000 because he's a little bit bigger than me. Like, okay, cool. Uh, then, but you're just talking in terms of R, so it just translates a lot easier to anyone who's listening, whether they're the smallest fish in the pond or a giant whale. So anyway, example B, average win rate 4.36R, average loss 1.2R. You take the first one, you divide it by the second one, you get 3.63R. Okay. And then C, you can also, oh, that's what I'm looking for. You can also make your wins and losses in terms of percentage. So it would be the percentage of maybe like where your entry was or your percentage of your total position. Different people do it different ways, but average win would be 15% and average loss would be 50%. And so your PL ratio ends up being 0.3. So um, that's it. That's the video. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. It's we went over win rate and profit loss ratio. Those are the two things you need to know. Really, you kind of need to know parts of the profit loss ratio, but once you have these two ideas, you can tell whether you have a profitable system or not, right? Because win rate by itself, if you're winning 90% of the time, but your win is $1 and your loss is $1,000, you can do the math there. Obviously, that's not you're not gonna break even, right? Um, and the same thing even with a great P&L system. If you've got a P&L ratio, rather, if you've got a great one, like let's say your average winner is 3 times as big as your average loser, but your win rate's really low. You only win like 10% of the time. Well, that's probably not going to work out, right? Um, but let's talk about how we use those things and what we can calculate with those, and then and what that tells us about the profitability of our system. Profitability of our system. I think I did I say that right the first time? I don't know. So expectancy ratio is the first thing. So to find expectancy ratio, you take when I write these equations, I kind of use parentheses more than I really need to, just to make it a little bit more clear. But you take your win rate, multiply it by your profit loss ratio, and then you subtract the quantity of one minus your win rate, which is really just your loss rate, if you want to think of it that way. Um, this is if your win rate is in like a decimal form. So like we had earlier, the win rate was 0.741 or something like that. And I said you could multiply it by 100 and make it 74.1%. If you did that, if you're using percentages like 74%, then instead of 1 minus your win rate, you use 100 minus your win rate, and it'll come out the same. But it's dumb to do the multiplying by 100 and making it a percentage thing. Don't do that. Just use the decimal form. It's way easier. Um, Okay, so examples of this, and these numbers were pulled from the previous examples of win rates and profits and losses uh, previously. So, example A, you end up with a 0.1175 uh, expectancy ratio. Forgot what I was talking about. And then example B, you end up with a 0.671 expectancy ratio. So, like, okay, well, what does that tell you? What that number tells you when you're done with this equation is what you can expect each trade in that system to be worth in terms of your average loss. All right, that's why it's a ratio. So basically, in example A, each trade is going to be worth 0.1175 of your whatever your average loss is. So 11.75% of your average loss, each trade will average out to be worth that much. Okay. So you can see example A, if you took your average loss, if you remember, was $600 and you multiply that by 0.1175, you get 70.5, and that's in dollars, right? Uh, and then the second one, these were in R multiples, right? In example B. So you get 1.2, which was your average loss, and then you multiply that by 0.671, and you get 0.81. So that's each trade will be worth about 0.81 R multiples, or R for short. Right. But is my system profitable? I know this is kind of a math heavy one. It's not really super intense math, but I'm throwing out a lot of numbers and just reading equations and shit. But if your expectancy ratio is greater than zero, yes, technically it's a profitable system. This is pretty simple, right? So if you look back at these, both profitable systems. Cool. All right. Uh, let's talk about just expectancy, though. So we went over expectancy ratio. I think these are both important to know, or to be able to at least play with a little bit when you're looking at systems. So expectancy is it's a similar equation, and if you kind of play with the numbers, you'll figure out like, oh, this is what's going on. So expectancy is just your win rate times your average profit minus loss rate times your average loss. All right. This is basically simple stuff that most of you maybe have figured out already. Like, okay, I need to do this kind of math to figure out whether a system works or not, right? Um, so going back to the examples, and these numbers might look familiar, but you can see that when you run the numbers, you get $70.2 for example A and 0.81 in R multiples, right? Which is basically what we did up here in the second part, down after I did the numbers first. So uh, yeah, so what I want to know is, again, in the comments, which one of these is going to be a more profitable trading system. Um, so I just want you to guess really quickly before, like, pause the video if you have to before we move on, because I want to see basically, I want to see what you guys are thinking. I want to know like what level you all are on, because uh, you know this is kind of, I want to say this is beginner stuff, sort of. I mean, you need to know this pretty early, and so if you're if I'm getting a lot of guesses that are like way wrong, then I know like, okay, we need to talk about this stuff a little bit more, and it will probably help you guys. And that's what I want to do with this channel. So, but if you're all just like, this is the easiest shit in the world, then I'll move on and we'll talk about more important stuff. Not more important stuff, but more in depth stuff. So the quick answer is there isn't an answer. It depends on what your R is worth, right? Um, so in the first example, it's in dollars, so it just tells you each trade is going to be worth $70.2. It's like $70.20, right? Like awesome. Okay, great. But in the second example, it just tells you what your trades are going to be worth in R multiple, which is 0.81 R. Um, so if your R is worth $10, example B would be worth $8.1 per trade, right? $10 multiplied by 0.81 R. Okay. And again, like if you're in a little account, a really small account, in the beginning, when you're trying to like figure out how to click the buttons correctly and all that stuff, yeah, $10 might be a good risk for like, even if it's just for a week, right? While you're like figuring out, okay, this is how trading actually works. Like, um, if R is worth $1,000, then example B would be worth $810 per trade, right? And again, this is why I like using R multiples, because it just scales easier depending on where someone is at. So in a lot of my videos, I'll talk about R multiples, and that's why. Um, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my dog's chewing on a bone because I like to give her a bone on the weekends, and she's going to town on it. So with all that said, now we know how to find profitability. It's really simple: win rates, profit loss ratios, average winners, average losers. Do the equations. Those equations are available elsewhere online. I'm not the only person who has access to these, or the knowledge of these. But it's not. picking a good system is not all about strict profitability, and I'll probably do a whole nother video on this, but there are some other considerations, and I just want to mention those because I think they're important. So things to consider are like, what are the costs of the trading system? So in other words, like commissions, locate fees, platform fees. If you're having to buy, go through a broker that has a specific platform, like if you're day trading small caps and you're scalping or something, and you're going to be like you need lightning fast execution, or you're going to be with like Speed Trader or Cobra and Centerpoint, whatever the brokers are, but like you're going to go through maybe DAS and have to pay a couple $100 a month in platform fees or whatever. Are the commissions going to be more expensive? Locate fees when I was doing small caps is what seemed to be killing me. And it was just honestly just fucking annoying. I hated locates so much um, because yeah, I'm not going to go into all that. It was just for me that was incredibly frustrating. It ended up being what killed me as far as shorting, being short biased in the small caps. Uh, but anyway, what effect does the system have on your mental state, right? Like there are some high win rate systems that are, uh, you win 90% of the time, right? Let's say. But when you take a loss, it's a giant one. And that sometimes has to do with just the way the system works. Maybe you've got wide stops, or maybe you're kind of always averaging into your position. And then by the time it really starts going against you, you're in so large that it's going to be a big loss. That can still be a tradable, profitable system, but it's just like what does that do to your mental state, right? Like, when you are like winning all the time and you get used to winning, and then when you take a loss and it's giant and you have a huge drawdown, like that's a kick in the nuts, man. And so yeah, that might not be sustainable for some people. They're going to end up that one loss they take, they're going to end up throwing shit and breaking things and screaming at people, and it's just not good for them, right? So on the other side, there's lower win rate systems where you're kind of let's call it a system where you're trying to hit home runs, so you're losing maybe 70% of the time, which can also be demoralizing, right? It's like, oh, geez, freaking losing all the time. Like, this sucks. But when you hit a winner, you hit a big one. And again, if the numbers work out correctly, that can be profitable. But what does it do for you mentally, right? Are you the kind of person who would just like to win more often and then take big losses when you take them, or would you like to win a little less often, keep your losses small? Uh, you know, maybe lean toward getting paper cut to death, but also just no, I'm going to manage it. I'm going to take my losses when I need to, and then I'm going to hit some home runs and really take some profits along the way, that kind of stuff, and kind of have a more moderate approach to it. There's positives and negatives and advantages, disadvantages, however, pros and cons, whatever you want to say, to all of these trading systems, and you just have to figure out which one works best for you. Um, Also, one other thing to consider when you're looking at systems is like what hours does the system require you to dedicate to it? If I had to sit all day in front of my computer and watch the stocks and like pay attention to the reds and greens, as I call it, like that would suck. I wouldn't want to do it. Like I like trading. Actually, I love trading. I think it's an amazing thing. I love making money this way. But God, if I had to sit there all day, no, no, it wouldn't. I tell you now, like I've never traded all day. Um, I just don't. I don't know how people do it. I don't like it that much. I don't like sitting in front of screens that much. I don't really like sitting in front of the screen right now. Yeah, I'm leaving. All right. Quick review first before I leave. Just remember win rate, profit loss ratio. We did expectancy ratio and expectancy. Those are two. Those are the big ones. You need to know the first two in order to get those last two. But just know that if you do the expectancy ratio or the expectancy and your number is greater than zero, it's a positive result. Then that equals profitability. Um, just remember that there is more to consider than just whether or not the system is profitable. There's a lot more. And some of that stuff you'll really only discover with experience, right? You'll be like, this system's awesome. I'm going to implement it. And then you'll be 3 weeks into that system and you'll be like, this sucks donkey balls. I hate it. I don't even like trading anymore because of the system. And then hopefully what you do is find a better system and continue trading and not just give up altogether. Please don't do that. This is an amazing way to make money, and it's so much fun. When you find a system that fits you and your personality, it really is. For me, it's better than any job out there. So just keep at it. Keep at it.